The day my parents tried to take everything from me, they thought they had already won. Sitting across the courtroom, they looked confident while their attorney described me as unstable, unreliable, and damaged by PTSD from my military service. Every word felt like a knife. My mother wouldn't even look at me. My father smirked as if the judge had already made up his mind. Then something unexpected happened. The judge stopped listening to the attorney's speech and started reading a document. He flipped to page 4. His expression changed instantly. Moments later, their lawyer turned pale, and everything collapsed. I never imagined my own parents would one day use my military service against me. For years, I had lived with PTSD after returning home. Therapy, discipline, and support helped me build a stable life. I held a steady job, paid my bills, and stayed connected to my community. It wasn't always easy, but I worked hard every day. What made the betrayal worse was that my parents knew exactly how much effort it had taken. They had seen the difficult nights and the long road to recovery. They used to tell people how proud they were of me. Everything changed after my grandmother passed away. She left behind a valuable lakefront property that had been in our family for decades. I expected sadness and mourning. Instead, I received something else entirely. 3 weeks after the funeral, a court notice arrived at my door. My parents were challenging my inheritance. Their claim wasn't that Grandma had changed her mind. It wasn't about paperwork or legal technicalities. They argued that I was mentally unfit to manage the property because of my PTSD. As I read the filing, my hands shook. This wasn't a disagreement anymore. It was war. The next morning, I met with an attorney named Rebecca Lawson. She specialized in inheritance disputes and spent nearly an hour reading through the lawsuit. When she finally looked up, her expression told me everything. They aren't just challenging the inheritance, she said. They're building a case against your character. Over the following weeks, we received boxes of documents through discovery. My parents had gathered years of therapy records, medical evaluations, and personal notes. Information I had shared during my recovery was now being used as evidence against me. What hurt even more was watching relatives slowly pull away. Phone calls stopped. Invitations disappeared. A few cousins suddenly acted distant. It became clear that my parents had been telling everyone their version of the story long before filing the lawsuit. At night, I kept replaying old memories. The holidays I paid for. The repairs I made to their house. The countless times I showed up whenever they needed help. None of it seemed to matter now. Their attorney's strategy was obvious. Portray me as unstable. Make the court believe PTSD made me incapable of handling responsibility. Then Rebecca discovered something unusual. Among Grandma's estate documents was a sealed statement she had written months before her death. It had never been submitted with the original paperwork. Nobody knew what was inside. The first hearing was only days away. The courtroom felt colder than I expected. I sat beside Rebecca at the defense table while my parents occupied the opposite side. Neither of them looked at me. My father stared straight ahead. My mother focused on a stack of papers, as if I were a stranger. Their attorney stood confidently when the hearing began. For nearly an hour, he painted a picture of someone I barely recognized. He spoke about my PTSD repeatedly, carefully selecting phrases designed to create doubt. He described past struggles while ignoring years of recovery. Every accomplishment was minimized. Every difficult moment was magnified. I felt dozens of eyes turning toward me. The worst part wasn't the embarrassment. It was hearing deeply personal chapters of my life presented as evidence that I couldn't be trusted. My parents never objected. They sat silently while the attorney questioned my judgment, my stability, and my ability to manage the inheritance Grandma had left behind. Rebecca remained calm. When the attorney finally finished, she rose from her chair and approached the bench. "Your Honor," she said, "there is one document the court has not yet reviewed." She handed over Grandma's sealed statement. The opposing attorney barely glanced at it before shaking his head. Respectfully, that document is irrelevant. Rebecca didn't argue. Instead, she simply asked the judge to read it. The judge adjusted his glasses and opened the file. Page 1. Then page 2. Then page 3. The courtroom grew strangely quiet. When he turned to the next page, everyone waited. Something in the room suddenly felt different. Very different indeed. The judge stopped turning pages. For several seconds, he simply stared at page 4. The silence felt endless. Then he leaned back slightly and began reading portions of the statement more carefully. His expression changed from curiosity to concern. Across the courtroom, I noticed the confidence slowly draining from my parents' faces. Grandma had anticipated this fight. Months before her death, she had written a detailed statement explaining exactly why she wanted me to inherit the property. She described my years of service, my recovery journey, and the responsibility I had shown despite every challenge life had thrown at me. Then came the part that changed everything. Grandma wrote that she was fully aware of my PTSD and trusted me completely. She called me the most dependable person in the family. She listed examples. When she needed help with medical appointments, I was there. When household bills became confusing, I managed them. When repairs were needed, I handled them. For years, I had quietly taken care of responsibilities that others avoided. The statement became even more specific. Grandma revealed she feared my parents might challenge her wishes after her passing. She documented conversations, dates, and incidents that explained her concerns. Several claims made in the lawsuit directly contradicted her written testimony. The judge continued reading. My father's face turned pale. My mother stared at the table. Then I looked at their attorney. He had taken a copy of the statement and was rereading page 4. The color had disappeared from his face too. Completely. Almost instantly. There. The judge lowered the document and looked directly at my parents' attorney. Counselor, he said, were you aware of these statements when this case was filed? The attorney hesitated. It was the first sign of uncertainty we'd seen all day. Before he could answer, the judge began listing contradictions between the lawsuit and Grandma's written testimony. Dates didn't match. Claims about my inability to manage responsibilities were directly refuted by documented examples. Rebecca then introduced additional records supporting Grandma's account. Medical appointment logs, financial records, property maintenance documents. Each piece reinforced the same truth. I had been managing important responsibilities for years. My parents struggled to explain the inconsistencies. Their answers became shorter and less convincing with every question. Meanwhile, their attorney looked increasingly frustrated. It was obvious he hadn't been given the full story before filing the case. The foundation of their argument was collapsing in real time. Finally, the judge addressed the issue that mattered most. He criticized the attempt to use private mental health challenges as a weapon for personal gain. Then he ruled in my favor. The inheritance remained mine. As the hearing ended, my parents quietly gathered their papers and left the courtroom in stunned silence. Winning the case didn't repair the damage my parents had caused. The inheritance mattered, but it was never the real issue. What hurt most was discovering how easily people could use your struggles against you when money entered the picture. Grandma understood something the court eventually recognized. PTSD was part of my story, not my identity. It didn't erase my character, my judgment, or the life I had built. Her words protected me when I needed them most. I still miss her every day, but I carry her final lesson with me. Never let others decide your worth. Ever.